As the courtroom doors slammed shut and cameras were banned from entry, whispers echoed in the hallway. Something big was about to drop. But nothing could prepare the world for what came out of that sealed evidence file. A secret tape, played in total silence, that left even the judge's jaw hanging. This wasn't just some routine testimony. It was explosive. What the jury saw in that grainy footage shook the courtroom like a live grenade. Private, after-dark moments from Diddy's alleged freak-off parties, now exposed in full, raw detail. Celebrities, A-listers, people you'd never expect. All allegedly involved, all caught on the tape that never should have seen daylight. Security gasped. The audience leaned in. And Diddy? He didn't flinch. He just sat there, silent, cold, as if he knew this moment was coming. Fans are shocked. Social media is going insane. Questions are spiraling. Who's really on the tape? What was actually shown? And is this the end of Diddy's empire? Or just the beginning of a much darker scandal? The tension in the courtroom was suffocating. Diddy sat at the defense table, motionless, his fingers interlocked, eyes fixed on the polished wood ahead. Outside the courthouse, a mob of reporters screamed questions into the air, cameras flashing, like fireworks. But inside, it was eerily quiet, too quiet. Something was about to erupt. Prosecutor Melissa Grant stood slowly, her hands gripping a slim black folder. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady but ominous. "We are prepared to introduce visual evidence, submitted under seal, which directly supports the prosecution's claims of criminal conduct associated with private gatherings hosted by the defendant." The judge raised an eyebrow. Murmurs spread across the benches like wildfire. Even Diddy's lead attorney shifted uncomfortably. But Diddy? Not a blink. Not a breath. Melissa walked to the evidence screen and inserted the drive. The lights dimmed. A blue loading bar appeared. And then, grainy footage. A timestamp in the corner. Music faintly thumping in the background. And then, faces. Faces everyone in that courtroom recognized. An audible gasp broke through the silence as the first frame focused. The jury leaned forward. A juror placed her hand over her mouth. The camera panned across a dimly lit room filled with celebrities, rappers, athletes, Hollywood elites, all participating in what could only be described as chaotic intimacy. Champagne sprayed, clothes hit the floor, and laughter echoed as the tape rolled on, unedited and unfiltered. "No way," someone whispered under their breath. The judge banged his gavel to restore order. On the screen, a familiar voice shouted, "Lock the doors, no phones tonight." And it was Diddy's. His voice, unmistakable, filled the courtroom. His presence at the center of everything, coordinating, encouraging. Emotions ran high. The prosecution paused the tape. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Melissa said slowly, "this is just the beginning." Diddy's legal team jumped to their feet. "Objection, Your Honor. This is an invasion of privacy, irrelevant, prejudicial." The judge raised a hand. "Sit down, Mr. Peters. The court allowed this. Let her proceed." The crowd outside, unaware of what was unfolding, had started chanting. They'd seen nothing yet, but rumors were already bleeding out through courtroom sketches and whispered leaks. Hashtags like Towel Diddy tapes and Freak-Off trial were trending worldwide. Inside, the tape resumed. 1 frame. 2 frames. And then, chaos. Woman appeared, face partially blurred, but voice crystal clear. "I didn't want to come here," she said, clearly distressed. "But he told me, if I didn't, my career was over." Melissa looked at the jury. This woman was a rising singer. She hasn't released a single since 2019. After this party, she vanished from the industry. Fans were stunned. Across social media, speculation exploded. Was this the reason so many new artists faded away so suddenly? Was there a hidden system, an underground circle, that dictated who rose and who disappeared? Diddy leaned back in his chair, still silent. A small smirk played on the corner of his mouth, as if all of this was beneath him, as if he'd seen worse. The video paused again. A new scene loaded. Another night, another mansion, a different set of celebrities. This time, the camera captured a hallway. Red lights, velvet walls, and a lineup of guests being asked to leave their phones in a locked box. The person asking? A celebrity bodyguard tied directly to Diddy's inner circle. In the background, the faint sound of crying. "Pause it there," Melissa said. The screen froze. "Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to look at the timestamp. Now, compare it with this next piece." She clicked again, and the screen filled with an Instagram post. Glossy, filtered, showing a group of celebrities smiling with drinks in hand. The caption read, "Best night ever. Legendary vibes. Same night, same house, but two different realities." "What you see on social media," Melissa continued, "is a curated illusion. What happened behind closed doors is what this trial is about." The courtroom was stunned. In the gallery, Diddy's brother looked pale. His assistant kept glancing nervously toward the exit. Even his longtime security chief stared at the floor, unmoving. And then the biggest moment of the day arrived. The next scene played. A woman, covered by a blanket, sat at the edge of a couch, shaking. "He said it was just a party," she mumbled. "But it wasn't. It never is. They always say it's just music, just friends. And then, you're stuck. You're stuck." I walked in and saw masks. Not costumes. Masks. The kind you wear to hide. People weren't dancing. They were selecting. As if it was a menu. I saw a girl crying in the corner. I tried to help her. Someone pulled me away, told me I wasn't allowed in that room. Melissa's tone turned sharp. "Who pulled you?" Janice looked directly at Diddy. "He did," gasps again. The court clerk looked stunned. Janice's voice cracked. "He said, 'You don't belong in this part of the house. Stay upstairs.' I left that night. Never came back." "And why are you here now?" Melissa asked. "Because if I stay silent, I'm complicit. I've seen too much, and too many people have been hurt." Diddy clenched his jaw for the first time. The arrogance slipped. Outside the courthouse, news spread like wildfire. "Diddy's own family turns against him," screamed the headlines. Media vans swarmed the street. Talk show hosts were canceling appearances with him. A major TV series paused production on a biopic involving his music career. The fall had officially begun, and still, the footage hadn't stopped. Melissa had more. "We'd like to introduce the final clip for the day," she said. "This one is from the surveillance archives of one of the private venues rented under an alias by the defendant." The courtroom darkened again. The screen flickered. Footage began. Time-stamped. Low resolution. The view from a hallway camera. Diddy walked down the corridor, arm around a young artist. One who had once topped charts, now vanished from the industry. They stopped near a door. His voice was barely audible, but picked up clearly in the room's speakers. "You want your next album? Then you'll do this." No hesitation. The artist hesitated. "You're not special," Diddy added coldly. "Everyone's done it." The room gasped. Melissa paused the video. "We believe this is part of a larger pattern. Coercion, intimidation, exploitation. And it wasn't isolated." The defense stood up again, voice cracking. "Your Honor, we move for dismissal. This trial has become a circus of edited videos and emotional manipulation." The judge responded firmly. "Sit down. The jury will decide what is and isn't manipulation." Melissa looked straight at the jury. "This is what power unchecked looks like. Behind the gold chains and platinum records is control. And now that the curtain's lifted, we're seeing the real show." The jury appeared shaken. Reporters outside were tripping over each other to break the next headline. Celebrities began issuing statements. Some distanced themselves from Diddy, while others stayed quiet. Too quiet. But inside the court, another twist was loading. A woman in a green suit stood quietly near the back. She raised her hand. Melissa noticed. "Your Honor, with the court's permission, we'd like to call one more witness today." She was not on the original list. She came forward just now. "Granted," the judge said. The woman stepped forward, heels echoing through the chamber. She introduced herself as a former executive assistant. Her badge once allowed her inside every room, every studio, every event. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "I handled scheduling, logistics, personal security arrangements," she said. "And special requests." "What kind of requests?" Melissa asked. The woman smiled coldly. people, locations, equipment, anything that helped keep the outside world from knowing what was really going on. She handed over a folder. Inside were receipts, lists, flight bookings, invoices for cash withdrawals, all tied to events matching the timeline of the videos. "Did you ever question it?" Melissa asked. "At first," the woman said. "But the first time someone disappeared after speaking up, I stopped asking questions." The courtroom was frozen again. And then, one final moment, Melissa asked the assistant one last question. "Why now?" The woman's eyes narrowed. "Because I got a call this morning, from a blocked number. They said I'd better stay quiet, and that's how I knew I couldn't." She walked off the stand. Melissa turned to the judge. "We rest for today." But even as the court adjourned, one final envelope was handed to Melissa. She opened it, and her expression shifted. It was a subpoena, issued quietly, behind the scenes. And the name on it? Someone even bigger than Diddy. Someone no one expected to be involved. Melissa stared at the subpoena for a long moment, her fingers gripping the edges tightly. The name printed across the top wasn't just familiar, it was iconic. The kind of name that silenced rooms. A name that represented decades of influence, luxury, and control. Jaden Cross. Billionaire mogul, music label founder, industry gatekeeper, publicly untouchable. He was never linked to Diddy, at least not on paper, but those in the inner circle whispered about him, the silent architect behind many so-called industry parties. Now, his name was on an official court document. As the courtroom began to empty, Melissa slipped the envelope into her case. She didn't speak to anyone, not even the reporters who chased her down the courthouse steps, shouting questions. She had a new goal now. Back inside the courthouse, Diddy sat in the defense room alone. His lawyer had stepped out to take a call. For the first time, Diddy looked rattled, not broken, not scared, but rattled. He whispered to himself, "They're going too far." Outside, protests were beginning. Young women held signs with phrases like, "We see you now," and "No more silence." Several former collaborators issued public apologies. One even admitted that he'd been pushed into silence after seeing one of the parties firsthand. Fans were losing faith fast. Back in court the next day, the prosecution called their next surprise witness, a young woman, barely 20. Her hands trembled as she adjusted the microphone. "I was a dancer," she began. "Got hired for a private show at a party in Vegas. They said it was all safe, that it was VIP only, no cameras, high-paying gig. I needed the money." She paused. The room leaned in. "They flew us out." Everything looked normal at first, but once the doors locked, they changed the rules. They said, "You're not here to dance, you're here to perform." And then they handed us pills. Someone in the jury gasped. "I refused," she said. "But they said I'd already signed the NDA. That backing out would cost me thousands. I tried to run. 2 security guards cornered me. Then he walked in. Diddy." Her voice broke. "He told me to calm down, said he'd take care of me. And then..." He smiled, like he was proud of it all. Melissa stepped forward gently. "How did you escape?" The dancer held up a scarred wrist. "I jumped out the bathroom window, broke my arm, hitchhiked to a gas station and begged for help." Melissa nodded. "And why come forward now?" "Because someone else won't be able to." She stayed behind, that night. I never saw her again. The courtroom was silent. Diddy leaned forward, face blank. Unreadable. The defense team scribbled notes frantically, their case unraveling faster than they could stop it. And then, the next hammer dropped. Melissa stood and turned toward the court. "Your Honor, we would like to admit an audio file into evidence. This file was obtained through a sealed investigation and contains a conversation between the defendant and Mr. Jaden Cross." The judge glanced at the defense. "Objection," the attorney barked. "Chain of custody is unclear." Melissa calmly lifted another document. "We have the FBI's clearance on the wiretap. It's legitimate." The judge nodded. "Play it." The audio crackled. At first, silence. Then, A laugh. Jaden's voice. Deep. Commanding. Calm. You think the girl's gonna talk? Diddy's voice followed. Cold. Sharp. She talks, she disappears. Just like the others. Loud gasps echoed around the courtroom. Melissa paused the recording. This conversation occurred 3 days after the incident in Vegas. The jury was visibly shaken. One juror wiped tears away. Another looked at Diddy like he'd never seen him before. But Melissa wasn't finished. We will now introduce footage from Mr. Cross's private estate, obtained through a court-issued warrant executed last week. The screen turned on again. Massive hall. Walls covered in artwork. Servers walking through with trays. And in the corner, Jaden and Diddy talking, laughing, shaking hands. Behind them, a hallway lined with closed doors and red lighting. Melissa paused. That hallway leads to private rooms. We believe these spaces were used for exploitative activities under the guise of exclusive entertainment, and we have statements from 5 former staff members who confirm it. Diddy finally spoke. He leaned toward his attorney and whispered something. His lawyer stood. Your Honor, the defense would like to request a private consultation. The judge nodded. The court recessed. In the hallway, reporters shouted again. The public was on fire. Tweets demanded justice. Former insiders hinted that more names were coming. And backstage, panic had begun. Jaden Cross's legal team filed a motion to seal the subpoena. But it was too late. The name was out. And now, the focus shifted. People began to ask, how far up does this go? Former label execs, TV producers, festival organizers? Was Diddy just the frontman for a deeper machine? As the court returned from recess, the judge looked older, wearier. This case had gone from a celebrity scandal to a potential industry takedown. Melissa stood again. Melissa stood again. Before we continue, Your Honor, we'd like to inform the court that the Department of Justice has officially opened a parallel investigation into Cross Holdings Limited and its affiliates. Stunned silence. Diddy's lawyer slammed his folder. Shut. Outside, a news alert blared across phone screens. DOJ opens probe into elite music powerhouses following Diddy trial. And then came one more twist. Melissa announced, we have testimony from a former business manager who claims funds were used to pay off witnesses and silence legal threats. The defense objected loudly. We request to approach the bench. The judge waved them forward. They argued in hushed tones, but the damage was done. The jury had heard enough. And just as court was about to adjourn, someone burst through the courtroom doors. A woman, shaking, holding a worn-out envelope. I have evidence, she shouted. They thought I was dead, but I'm not. Security moved fast, but the judge raised a hand. Let her speak. She walked to the front, handed the envelope to Melissa, and stared at Diddy. You remember me? His face went pale. The room was frozen. Even the judge didn't speak. The woman who burst in stood firm, clutching her empty hand as if it still held the weight of something much heavier. She looked older than her age, exhausted, weathered, like she'd lived through more than one lifetime. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were fierce. Melissa stepped forward and gently opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, handwritten, notes, and what appeared to be hotel receipts, flight records, and a USB drive. The woman's voice cracked as she said, My name is Kayla Mendez. I was 21 when I disappeared. Gasps rippled through the room. Kayla's face had once been splashed across missing persons reports. Her disappearance had sparked online theories, fan-led investigations, and even a documentary episode. Then, nothing. She had been presumed dead. Her family had held a vigil every year since. Now she stood here, alive. I went to one of the mansion parties, she said. It was supposed to be a one-night thing. My friend dragged me there, said we could network, get discovered. I believed her, Melissa asked softly. What happened that night? We were separated at the door, Kayla said. They took our phones, gave us numbers to wear. Like we were inventory. People stared, some whispered, others just watched. Diddy, he was in the center of it all. He picked who went where. She took a deep breath. I ended up in the blackout room. No lights, just voices, hands, fear. A juror covered their mouth, visibly shaking. Kayla continued. I escaped 2 days later, through the service entrance. But my friend never came. Out! I waited. She never came. I went to the police. They said there was no proof, no record. They said I must have imagined it. Her hands shook. So I ran, went underground, changed my name. I've been hiding ever since. Melissa carefully lifted one of the photos. Can you tell us what this is? That's a screenshot of my flight booking confirmation, paid for by Bad Boy Entertainment's private account. I never signed up for it. They booked it. They tracked me. The defense objected. Your Honor, this woman's been gone for years. Her mental health is unverified. The judge silenced them with one glare. Kayla looked straight at Diddy. You knew. You saw me that night. You smiled when I screamed. Diddy looked away. Melissa held up the USB. And what's on this? A backup, Kayla said. Footage from inside the house. Security cams. Someone leaked it to me anonymously before I disappeared. They said, if you ever make it out alive, this is your insurance. I never had the courage to use it. Until now, the tension in the room reached its peak. The judge ordered the footage reviewed and admitted into sealed evidence. The jury would see it the next day, but for now, Kayla's appearance had shattered the courtroom. The media outside exploded. Kayla Mendez returns from the dead. New witness ties Diddy to blacked-out room horrors. Trial shifts into criminal conspiracy territory. And it wasn't just the public reacting. The DA's office announced they were considering multiple additional charges. Melissa turned to the judge before recess. We intend to move for indictment expansion, including obstruction of justice and interstate trafficking. The defense collapsed into their chairs. Even Diddy leaned back, face blank, blinking rapidly like a man trying to reset time. But it was too late. The empire was crumbling. Across the country, celebrities were pulling endorsements. Labels were erasing past collaborations. TV networks began purging interviews and cameos. But perhaps the most unexpected fallout came from Diddy's own family. Janice, his cousin who had testified days earlier, issued a public statement from the courthouse steps. This is bigger than him. It's about the system that protected him. We must dismantle that system. Overnight, hundreds of women began posting anonymously. I was number 14, one post read. I remember the red hallway, another said. The phrase, just red hallway, trended for 14 hours straight. In court the next day, the footage from Kayla's USB played in private session for the jury. They emerged pale. One juror sobbed quietly into her hands. No one doubted it anymore. Diddy's attorney requested a private meeting with Melissa and the judge. Behind closed doors, the lawyer's voice cracked. We'd like to discuss terms. Melissa raised an eyebrow. For what? A plea. Those words hit like thunder, but Melissa wasn't finished. Only if he testifies. Everything, everyone. The names, the payments, the rooms. Silence. The judge waited. Finally, the lawyer sighed. He'll consider it. But outside, the world was already moving on. Jaden Cross had reportedly flown to the Caymans. Federal agents issued a quiet warrant. Insiders said he'd known this was coming. He had plans in place for years. But the public had tasted the truth. And they weren't letting go. Back in court, Diddy was escorted through a private tunnel. No longer arriving in luxury cars, no cameras, following glamour, just quiet steps and legal panic. As the day's session ended, the judge issued a statement. This case now extends beyond the defendant. It represents a pattern of abuse, deception, and exploitation in the highest echelons of entertainment. And as Diddy left the room, handcuffed and silent, Kayla looked him dead in the eye. This time, you don't get to walk away. And now, it's time for the final reveal. That moment no one saw coming. The courtroom may have emptied, but the echoes of the trial still roar across every corner of the internet. What started as a single piece of footage has now unraveled a web of darkness, secrecy, and power. A-list reputations are shaking, private messages are being leaked, and the public? They're wide awake now, no longer starstruck, no longer silent. Diddy's fall from grace isn't just about one man's empire collapsing. It's about the people he silenced, the lives he altered, and the secrets he thought would never see daylight. But as we've seen, the truth always finds a way out. And yet, it isn't over. Sources say more names are coming, more footage, more testimonies, and with federal investigations heating up, even Diddy's inner circle is starting to crack. Will he cut a deal, or will he take down everyone with him? You've seen the scandal unfold. You've felt the rage, the heartbreak, the shock. Now it's your turn. What do you think really went down behind those mansion doors? Was Diddy just the frontman for a deeper, darker game? Or is there more coming that we still haven't seen? Drop your thoughts in the comments. No holding back. Smash that like button if you believe the truth should come out, no matter who. It burns. Subscribe now for the next explosive update because trust us, this story is just getting started. And when the next name leaks, you'll want to be the first to know. Justice is calling, and it's only getting louder.